Namaste to all of you. Today we are going to talk about a wonderful topic about Satyavadi Harishchandra. Satyavadi Harishchandra means one who is always speaking truth. Most of us would have heard of the word Harishchandra. Some of us would even know the story Harishchandra. But the idea today is to understand the story in a greater detail, because the last 100 years this story has slowly phased out of our psyche. The very first movie made in India by Phalke was a full-length feature film called Harishchandra, Raja Harishchandra, 1913. Then we had the first Marathi movie called Ayodhya Che Raja, and later on it was also made in Hindi as the first double language movie in India, Indian cinema, Ayodhya Ka Raja. We also have heard this story that how Gandhi was influenced when he was a child, when he saw a play of Harishchandra. So that tells us that even right through the independence time, this story, and even if you look at 1960s, also there were Tamil movies that came and things like that. So Harishchandra was in the top of our mind, top of our thought process, that truth, Satya, was also a very important component of our life. But what is happening now, we have less and less people remembering the story, and worse yet, very few are committed to the values of Satya, and we don't understand how deep its significance is. This story has been retold in many Puranas, in Valmiki Ramayana, in Mahabharata, in Devi Bhagavata, even in the Vedas, Aitreya Brahmana. That goes on to tell you not only the story is very ancient, but also very significant, as it has been influencing the Indian civilization for thousands of years. Thousands of years. So needless to say, when a story is that ancient, there are different flavors of the story that exist. If you look at the Mahabharata, in the Vanaparva, Markandeya Maharishi comes and gives this story to Yudhishthira, so that he can remain steadfast in Dharma. Same way, in Markandeya Purana, there is a much broader and a more detailed insight given about Harishchandra's account. If you look at these different texts, there will be slight mismatches. For example, there are additional names given to Harishchandra's wife, Shaivya, as Chandramati or Taramati, things like that. there is also Harishchandra's son Rohita, referred as Rohitasva or Rohitasya or Lohita. The Ra becomes La. So those variations are there. And also, if you look at the story difference between the Aitreya Brahmana version and the one that is given in the Markandeya Purana, where lot of depth is given, there is a slight variation even in the plot. So we are not going to get into a scholarly debate which is more authentic, which flavor came first, because things change in that much span of time. We have slightly different flavors. So we are going to go with the one where we get the most detailed information, and we will follow Markandeya Purana's account today. So we all know Bhagavan Rama is born in the Ikshvaku Kula. In that Ikshvaku Kula or Surya Vamsa, many generations before, there was the Raja Harishchandra, who was an ancestor of Bhagavan Rama. There were many illustrious kings in that lineage, like Raghu, Mandata, Ambarisha, so on, so forth. You can say Sagara, Dilipa, Bhagirath. You can tell so many names. So what we are trying to do here is understand Harishchandra's story in the most popular flavor and try to apply in our lives. So Raja Harishchandra, we all have heard about Trishanku. Trishanku's original name was Satyavrata. He wanted to go to heaven, or what we call as Swarga, along with his entire body, and that is not possible. You cannot go in your gross body, you can go only in your subtle body. But he wanted to violate that, so he sought the services of Vishwamitra Maharishi. And when Vishwamitra sent him with the body, Indra kicked him out. And when Indra kicked him out, he fell. So Vishwamitra gave him all his tapas shakti and created a Swarga for him, everything upside down. He literally created a separate universe for him. So his son was Harishchandra. Why am I saying that? It is important for us to understand that for Bhagavan Rama to come in that lineage, somebody is setting the bar so high many generations before, and that standard is so high, and the subsequent generations are also trying to meet the same standard, or if not scale a new peak. We will come back to this point later because it's very important. Let's put it in the back of our head and we'll come back to this point. Harishchandra's rule was so unique, exalted. People felt that it was literally living in heaven. The citizens never heard of famine or starvation or untimely deaths. No one was intoxicated due to wealth, strength, tapasya, and more importantly, no spurious things like, say, alcohol or drugs or things like that. Very important to understand that. If you want to create a great nation, not only the ego based things, but you also need to get rid of some physical junk like alcohol. It's very important. So I have pinned the article based on which this entire talk is set up. So just in case somebody wants to go and look at it or read at in their patience, they can do that. One day, Harishchandra goes into the forest on a deer hunting expedition. The Kshatriyas of the past were given certain animals as sanctioned for hunting, and deer was one of them. But they won't go into the forest and randomly start hunting things, hunting elephants or killing things like that. They were not sanctioned. So there was an understanding of the ecosystem and also the needs of the Kshatriyas to not lose their skill, because to shoot a deer in flight is not easy. When this was happening, he heard some wailing sound of some women, and since he was a dharmic king, he went and he investigated. So Vishwamitra, because he had spent all his tapo-shakti, he was sitting there doing extreme tapasya, and that was pushing the limits of sciences. So these sciences took a human form and they started crying and crying for help. So to protect them, Ganesha took the form and entered into Harishchandra's body, who happened to be nearby conveniently, and made him speak in anger. And when he spoke in anger, that disturbed Vishwamitra's concentration long enough. Then Ganesha just left, having completed his mission. So what happened? Now Harishchandra is suddenly out of that spell, trembling like a leaf, wondering what happened, and he was extremely sorry for disturbing Vishwamitra's tapasya. So Vishwamitra said, I am going to seek some sort of compensation, and this fellow seems to be worthy, because you can't ask anyone and everyone. So Harishchandra said that he was a dharmic king and he was renowned for supporting yagas and yajnas. So Vishwamitra said, that's good, but I am looking for you to compensate for. He said, okay, I will accept your entire kingdom and everything you have, including the clothes and whatnot, and accept the fruits of your dharma. Except your dharma adherence, I will take everything from you. So he went back to the kingdom and he told the people that Vishwamitra is going to be the king. And he took all the leave of his citizens and he was moving. So Vishwamitra came there and he said, you are forgetting something, buddy. You are also supposed to give me the gold for the Rajasuya Yajna. Now this happened in a forest where nobody was there. Having given the entire kingdom and all the resources, he had nothing left on him. He said, I have nothing with me. I have given you. He said, how dare you cheat me? So when the people saw that Harishchandra was leaving, they said, this Vishwamitra seems to be a madman. He doesn't seem to be doing something right. Let's follow this king, our king, who is a dharmic king, and we'll follow wherever he is, and wherever he goes, we will go. So what happened? Vishwamitra said that he was revolting his people with his people, and he was tricking him. So now Harichandra had to placate his citizens and ask them to stay. And not only that, when Harichandra was leaving, he took a stick and he was prodding the wife of Harishchandra, Shaivya, to hasten her exit. So, seeing this ghastly act, the 5 Vishwadevas, they exclaimed in support of the king, saying like, "Oh no!" And as soon as they uttered that, Vishwamitra showed his wrath on them and cursed that they will be born as humans and enjoy no pleasure. And these 5 Vishwadevas ended up as the 5 children of Draupadi much later. And they were born to their parents, but they never spent time with their parents because they were already in the forest. On top of that, as soon as the war was over, Ashwatthama kills them in sleep. So they go back getting a release from that curse of Vishwamitra. So he started wandering. Harichandra started wandering with his family, with his son and his wife, and they came to Kashi. Only to find that 30 days allowance he had asked from Vishwamitra as a grace period was over, and Vishwamitra said, "Hey, you still have the end of the day, you better give me the money you promised or I am going to curse you." And he had already seen that even Devas were cursed because they just came to the side of the Dharmic king. Now what happened? His wife Shaivya suggested, "Look, I am your wife and I share all the Dharmic load you carry. You can sell me. Although it looks ridiculous, you can sell me as a servant to someone, take that money and give it to him." The minute she uttered these words, Harichandra fainted. Now the child started crying for help. Hunger. Child, nobody had eaten for days together. And seeing the child cry, the mom's heart broke and she also collapsed. Now Vishwamitra came to the scene. He came to the scene and he started to sprinkle some water. Atmaji, there is some feedback. Atmaji, I am going to put you to the audience and then you can try coming back. I think there is some feedback. Okay. So when he woke up, he reminded him that now it is good. Thank you. He reminded that Harichandra had only a few more hours left, and the interesting thing was he started giving him lectures. He started telling him that, look, if you do 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, you can go to Swarga. But even that Swarga is being held on the strength of Satya. So if you don't want me to curse you and make you as a Chandala, sorry, I got some disturbance here. So if you don't want me to curse you, you better get me the money. And he was cursing him to be a Chandala. Now immediately all our modern half-baked crowd that will start saying, "Oh, this is like segregating the society, abusing some sections of society." We have to understand the Chandala in those days was also part of the society, but this fellow was very, very low on the scale. But today human beings have gone way below that scale. That's a different thing. We still have some of them as our politicians. That is even more sad. But what a Chandala represents is this fellow raises a dog, feeds it, and one day when he doesn't have any food, he butchers the dog and he eats it. So a dog is the symbol of total dependence and loyalty, right? And this person doesn't even show that much amount of compassion or grace. Such a person is called a Chandala. So it is not any person who is belonging to a certain caste, like how they would like to spin the yarn. So what happened now when again Vishwamitra comes and reiterates Shaiva's theory that the only way out is to auction themselves. So he goes to the street corner and he tells, this lady is of great quality, she has all the great gunas, can anybody help out? The only reason she is on the auction place is because of his inability. And he doesn't say he is a king, because if he announces that, nobody is going to touch that, right? He just says that she is of great birth. One aged Brahmana purchases her and kind of drags her away. But the child, seeing the mother being dragged, starts crying. It's a small child, very young child. So what happened? Shaiva pleads that Brahmana, please don't separate me from the child. So the guy gives a throwaway price and he buys the child also. He said, hey, this is still short of the amount you promised. Harichandra was reminded that he had only a fourth of the day left. Now, interestingly, at this time, what happens? Dharma, all the Dharma, what he was doing, right? He was a Dharmic king. All he did was protect Dharma. The Dharma cannot come directly and confront Vishwamitra, because he would curse it also, right? Anybody who is coming to the aid of Harichandra is getting cursed. So, Dharma took a hideous form and holds a skull, has some dogs around, and he is coming and saying that I am going to buy. Now Harichandra is like looking at his lineage. What a great fall from the Ikshvaku race or clan to be sold as a slave to a Chandala. Now Vishwamitra is saying that he is deliberately dragging his feet. Now Harichandra says, why don't you buy me instead of this fellow? I will rather be as your servant instead of that guy. So Vishwamitra said, okay, and in turn he turned and he took the gold from the Chandala and he handed him over to Pravira for his service. This particular Chandala was in charge of a crematorium. In this crematorium, the main job of Harichandra was they come with costly clothes, they may have some like ornaments or whatever, maybe they may put some coins, whatever. So he has to collect these ornaments from the dead bodies, and whatever he gets as a fee, 1/6 will go to the king as tax. 3/6 will go to Pravira because he gave him the job, and 2/6 will be Harichandra's salary, wages. Now imagine this. Harichandra, I am just going to take you there. Harichandra is in the crematorium surrounded by the wails of relatives whenever they come with a new dead body. There are multiple corpses that are burning all the time. Some of them rotten, some of them in stench. He needs to make sure that the jackals and the other animals don't come and steal like vultures don't come and steal some of the flesh. His job needs to make sure that the corpses are completely burnt according to the rules of that day. And all day there are wailing relatives crying for their departed, and all night you hear the cries of the jackals and owls and all the other animals. So it was literally like Naraka for him. The stench of the rotting flesh and the burning stench. See what happened in COVID. Lot of doctors, very professional, when somebody dies on their watch, they just say, okay, yeah, don't worry, and it just makes no dent to them because they have seen death on their table. But what COVID did was, it brought death in such an unprecedented case that people had never seen that. They were shocked. They were completely shocked, and it literally shook them. But if you look at Harishchandra, his entire job is to do this day and night. So, and on top of that, if you have never gone to a crematorium, especially a wood-based one, what happens is the dead body, when you are burning it, it kind of like it starts stretching and it's kind of like starts standing up. It looks like a horror movie where a person is set on fire and is trying to walk or run or whatever, right? And on top of that, he has undergone so much amount of personal trauma. So what had happened, his mind was not even in a stable state. He couldn't distinguish what is reality, what is unreal, what is happening in his head. He couldn't differentiate that. 12 months go by. And one day what happened, he thought he had a horrible nightmare. And he thought he was continuing suffering for no reason even in the next birth. And then as the nightmare continued, he saw that he was being thrown back in the different punishments in the Naraka. He could not comprehend if it was real or if it was happening in a nightmare. He was in that sorry state of mind. And when such a thing was happening in his head, suddenly when he realized there is a new corpse waiting there, and the new corpse was his son's. He didn't realize that it was his son. He didn't realize it was his wife standing there. Because neither one could recognize each other because time had beaten them up so badly. The son was playing in the garden and a snake bit, so the child died. And then when he was about to light the pyre, he looks at the child and he exclaims, "What a tender young age! This child has royal qualities." And he couldn't understand that sadness. He couldn't see that sadness. Though he is burning dead bodies day in, day out, this royal child qualities were so attractive. As soon as he uttered that, Shaivya broke down. She started lamenting that how the great Dharmic king Harishchandra was there and his son Rohitasya was lying like this. The minute Harishchandra's name was uttered, he understood the gravity of the situation, and now what happened, Harishchandra literally couldn't control, he just collapsed. And looking at this, Shaivya immediately understood what was happening and she also became unconscious. Now both of them started lamenting what a horrible fate, because Shaivya never knew that her husband became a Chandala's slave. And she started exclaiming, is there any dharma left in this world? Is there anything called as karma and karma phala? Or are they all hyped up ideas? Why there is no benefit for supporting and following dharma? Now Harishchandra is totally mentally collapsed. He says, okay, he is not even sure if it is real or in his nightmare. So he figured out that whether it is a real or nightmare, the only way to do is to jump into the funeral pyre along with his son. So he tells his wife, you go and serve your master, and that is the only thing you need to do, and I am going to end my life with my son. Shaivya said, nothing doing, I am also coming. So when they understood that that's the only way out of their this equation, they placed the son's body, prayed to Shiva and Narayana, and they were about to jump into that fire. At that time Indra comes and keeps Dharma in front of him. And he also brings Vishwamitra, and all the other devas are there. He told that Vishwamitra did all this only for his good. And then Dharma was the Dharma Devata. He started talking so highly about his tolerance, his commitment to Dharma, his commitment to Satya at all costs, his tremendous self-control, Dhamma, and requested him not to do the suicide. Indra said, let's throw in some extras, like why don't all three of you come to Swarga with me? And you have demonstrated this wonderful struggle with all odds, against all odds, to support Satya as the supreme for everybody's benefit. As soon as Indra was telling that, there was a rain that came and drenched the funeral pyre, and the little lad woke up as if nothing happened. Harishchandra was so excited to see his son alive. He thanked, and then Indra gave him wonderful garlands and said, please come with me to Swarga. Now this is all we know. Maybe this is the limit to which most of us know the story, but the real story happens after. Harishchandra said, sorry, I cannot leave here without compensating my Chandala master. So that was his first objection. Look, I am literally a slave, so I can't. So Dharma said that it was all his, that Pravira was his form. He appeared so that he could come and protect him. He also told that he had undergone that Naraka, feeling as if he was in Naraka, and the pain, so that he could come out of this negative situation sooner. Now, the real depth of Harishchandra's Satya commitment, Dharma commitment comes to the fore. Indra again says, please come with me to Swarga. Harishchandra politely refuses. He said, now what? You are already free from the Chandala. We already told you it is Dharma. He said, no, I cannot abandon my citizens. Consider that with our friendly neighborhood politicians who show up only during election times and do nothing. Harishchandra says if he left his citizens just like that, it is same as killing a Brahmana or a Guru or Stri. So he said, I am not going to do that. And then he said, okay, I have to understand what made me qualify for Swarga. So Indra told him that, look, you have done all this punya, and all this punya, and look at the people, your citizens. They have not done all punya, they have done a mixed bag, some punya, some papa. So they will have to go through that baggage before you can take them to Swarga. Harishchandra understood how this was happening, and then he ventured to tell Indra that, look, I did my duties and responsibilities as a Raja, but I was ably supported by all my citizens. If my citizens didn't do their part as a Raja, I could not have done my part. So directly or indirectly, only because of their contributions, I was able to do all this yaga, yajna and all those charity, dana, dharma, all those things. So he checkmates Indra by saying, if you think and argue that I have done punya, take half of my punya and give it to my citizens and let them come to Swarga at least for one day. Imagine this guy. He has not seen his citizens in more than a year. His citizens have not seen him for more than a year. He had not seen his wife or his son for more than a year. And he was working with only corpses day in, day out. Literally living in a nightmare. But his heart was completely rooted in Dharma. So when Indra and Dharma and Vishwamitra heard all this, Vishwamitra is still officially the king. He immediately gives that kingdom and crowns his son Rohitasya as the next king of Kosala. And for the rest of the one full day, equal. And that's so true. There is only one Harishchandra. An ugly scene that Brahma had to intervene and give some sense to both and said like, okay, all this was done to portray the greatness of Harishchandra and his adherence to Satya to the rest of the world. And that's why he already got Swarga. So let's call a truce. Now let's focus on how all these ideas are going to apply in our lives. Let's focus on that and we will make this story practically applicable to us. The first idea is you and I have to protect dharma. But the more important thing is that dharma which you have protected protects you. Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. The dharma you protect is gonna protect you. Now what is happening? We saw how Pravira, who was Dharma Devata's form, comes to the support of Harishchandra when he was in doldrums. He had no other option. He had even sold his wife, his son. He had to sell only himself. And at that time, when nothing comes to your support, dharma comes to the rescue. Even in our life, if you really look carefully, you will find when you are up against all odds, from somewhere, whatever punya karma you have done, whatever dharma you had protected, it comes to your rescue. Now, if you say nothing comes to my rescue, then you will have to ask yourself, have you made enough deposit? It is like a bank deposit. Whatever you put only you can withdraw. You can't withdraw things which you don't have. This is not a credit card. The second point to understand is Satyameva Jayate. Only truth triumphs, and truth always triumphs. See, in the forest when nobody was there, for no fault of his, Harishchandra agreed to give dana for Rajasuya Yajna. But he also offered his life or the kingdom. Vishwamitra took a special interpretation. He said, like, give me the kingdom and also give me the money for the yajna. So, even though that was a variation of the truth, not the complete truth, Harishchandra upheld all, he endured all situations just to uphold that particular Satya. See, in Sanatana Dharma, if you look, there is a very interesting Upanishad called Taittiriya Upanishad. It's a very, very old Upanishad found in the Yajurveda, and there are 3 sections in that Yajurveda, in that Upanishad. That the first section you will find after a few verses, there is a message for all the graduating students who finish the Veda Adhyayana, finishing the studies of Vedas. Note, to teach Vedas, you need qualification. To learn Vedas, you can be of any varna. You don't have any limitation. But that is another thing what these guys are creating to create a wedge in our society. If we really look at the real nature of Paramatma, we call it as Sat Chit Ananda, truth, consciousness and bliss. And what is the very first thing we say? Sat. That is truth. So, even in that convocation address, what the Rishi is telling to the Veda graduates, first word he says is Satyam Vada, Dharmam Chara. First speak truth. Second instruction is follow Dharma. Because if you don't speak truth, you cannot even follow Dharma. So, even to uphold Dharma, you need the truth. That's what we understand. So the finest and finest refined aspect of dharma is truth. The next point we can take away for our life is to have dharmic thinking. Imagine this guy beaten up. He lost his kingship, he lost his wife, he had to auction her, he gave up his son. Now what is happening? All he is left with is upholding dharma. Even at that time, he is not ready to give up dharma. Even when his son is dying and he has to light the funeral pyre, when Indra is saying that don't worry, you will go to Swarga, he is saying no, I need to pay this Chandala. He says, I cannot come to Swarga because my citizens I cannot abandon without a king. And when that is taken care, he still says, no, give all half of my punya because everything came from my people. They should also see the benefit. You see, dharma is such a deep thing that it is very subtle. And only when we catch and grab hold of this satya and dharma in our lives and manifest it in our lives, through our lives, we will be able to appreciate the greatness of those values. The other aspect we need to understand that dharma is an ecosystem. See, this dharma ecosystem is very, very delicate. Is Harishchandra the only guy upholding dharma in this incident? No. You see, his wife Shaivya is a co-equal. What about the citizens? They are also ready to leave everything and follow their dharmic king. And when the king explains his predicament, they are ready to uphold what is the dharma for that situation. So everybody needs to do their individual part for upholding dharma. See, the word dharma comes from the word dri, which means to uphold, to support, to maintain. And if you look at the definition of the word dharma in Samskrita, there are two popular definitions that are given. One is dharayati iti dharmaha. That means basically that which upholds. So dharma is what upholds everything. Imagine there is an order, right? That earth is holding you. Why you are not sinking to the other end of the earth? There is a dharma, there is an order. Same way, there is another definition, dhriyate iti dharmaha, which means that which is supported. So dharma also needs to be supported, and that dharma also supports you. So if I support the dharma, that dharma will in turn support me. Right? So we have to understand that this idea of dharma is very, very essential. Even yesterday in our Q&A session, we were talking about the importance of dharma, artha, kama and moksha. It is the very, very foundational first principle of Sanatana Dharma. And Satya is the purest, most magnificent aspect of Dharma. The foundational aspect of Dharma is Satya. And the extreme example that Harishchandra sets us is mind-boggling. The benchmark is so high. Look at this ecosystem we are talking about Dharma. This Dharma is extremely fragile very, very delicate. One adharmic person can go and do damage to it. He can be the lone wolf and create a cascade of adharmic events that can grow exponentially and damage this ecosystem. But it takes each one of us to uphold dharma. It is somebody who had posted a tweet. There is a small video. In that video, there is a buffalo in behind some barrier, and there is a small turtle or tortoise, I think turtle maybe, that had flipped over. The buffalo is using its horns to flip that turtle. Can you imagine? They are unrelated species. That even in nature we understand that interdependence is at the heart of everybody's prosperity. If we don't even understand, we are less than that buffalo in terms of our intellect. So we need to understand the importance of what we need to play. The last point I want to make for the talk today is Bhagavan Rama took birth many generations after Harishchandra was the Ikshvaku king. If we want to pass the baton to our next generations, and assuming that we are biologically spent and we may not have any new generation also, we can still make that generation not biologically connected but literally the next generation by impacting other people positively. If you want Rama and Krishna to be gracing humanity, then we need to set the bar so high. We need to set the bar as high as Harishchandra. And that is how you uplift the society. You uplift the society by uplifting your standards of morality, your standards of dharma, not only in understanding but also in application. So with that, let me close my talk by praying to the lotus feet of Rama, that he will strengthen us in our resolve and commitment to dharma, in upholding satya, that we will always be focused singularly and strongly to upholding these great values. Jai Shri Ram.